hit subscribe. Subscribe to my guy, Uncle D. Tell him Big Bad sent you.
Spurling. I'm an attorney here in Houston, Texas. An advocate for black men, largely because I am a black man. I'm a black father. I have black sons. Hey, man, I do what I do.
All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to the broadcast. I'm glad to have everybody here, and I want to make sure I give a big acknowledgement to everybody who's watching on the rebroadcast. Shout out to all the people who are here today watching currently. Shout out to my man, Mr. 43TX. You're the first one in. And again, welcome to the broadcast. My name is Dennis Spurling. And, we're just going to get straight to the point. Before we get into what's happening or what we're dealing with, I'm just going to start off by saying Minnesota, that's got white people shook. It's got them confused. And I want to set the stage for you so you can understand where I'm coming from. Gun rights, okay, especially to white Americans, and how that differs from the lived reality of black people. I need you to understand something. See, in the United States, firearms have always been tied to power and autonomy and hierarchy. And on paper, the Second Amendment was sold as a check against tyranny. It's considered a declaration of individual liberty. You understand? All those good words from the Constitution. But see, here's the thing. In practice, for much of American history, that liberty was never universal. What do I mean by that? Well, after the Civil War, after the southern states, they passed black codes. And one of the most explicit was to prevent black Americans from owning or carrying guns. Keep in mind, you had a lot of brothers who participated in the Civil War and fought for the North. And the last thing you want is armed men black men walking around ready and able to defend themselves, okay? And so the laws stripped freed men, which is what the word was for colored people, or what we call foundational black American. It stripped us of our right to bear arms, okay? And so, and this was after Emancipation Proclamation. And this wasn't an accident, it was deliberate, because guns were seen as a source of self-defense, specifically black self-defense and sovereignty. And the white ruling class feared that above all, especially if they were trying to put us back in what would be tantamount to some sort of slavery-like conditions under Jim Crow. But nevertheless, as a result, the first major wave of gun control laws in America didn't take place in a climate of fear about random violence. Okay, it took place in a climate of fear about armed black people. And in many places, the legal right to bear arms was withheld from black folks as a way to maintain what they refer to as subjugation. Okay, so it's racial subjugation specifically. But now let's fast forward to the Mumford Act era. And so, before all the gun reform in the 20th century, a lot of the regulatory groundwork for what we call modern gun control, it was, it strengthened after black people began openly exercising their right to arms. Especially in the context where it made white people feel uncomfortable or afraid. And so these legislative moves were often justified under the guise of public safety, but the effect was a restriction on black self-defense and something that white gun owners never wanted to deal with or reckon with. So now, so gun rights mean a lot, okay, to white folk and white society. I mean, they mean a lot to every American, but the bottom line is this is part of the American ethos. Now, let's jump on over and let's talk about the police in America. Let's talk about the protector / enforcer. Now, so here's the thing. The police, they're there to keep the peace, right? But historically, the police forces were structured not as a community guardian, but as an enforcer of the hierarchy. See, some of you all may not understand, but the early policing in the South, and when I say South, I'm talking about the Southern United States, it began with slave patrols. And their job was to monitor and control Black people, capture those who escaped, and suppress any resistance. And that DNA never fully left that institution. So across the 20th century and the 21st century, policing was continued to function as an arm of the state power. And it's often been used disproportionately against Black and brown communities, whether we're talking about from the school to prison pipeline, stop and frisk policies. You got militarized responses to Black protests, which is why we're resting right now. And of course, the lived experience of many Black people in America, our impression of the police is not to protect and serve, but to observe and control. Again, we need a police force, okay? Defund the police was not a good idea. That was a stupid idea, okay? But I guess it sounded good. But we need a police force, but we want is a fair, well-trained police force that doesn't treat us like second-class citizens. And I think I can speak on behalf of all Black Americans. None of us want to walk around with no police force anywhere, and we're forced to defend ourselves. And when you get in trouble, you got to call a crackhead. Nobody wants to call a crackhead to help protect them from somebody who's stolen their car or is trying to break in their house. We do not want to call crackhead. We don't want to call 911 and a crackhead pick up. Where you at? What you mean? We don't want that. We want some justice. We want some service. But the problem is, it seems like the only thing the police are doing is just serving us in all the wrong ways. But white America, because of this racial privilege, they assume, okay? Somebody type assume in the chat room. And shout out to my man, Red Sigma. Thank you so much for being the first person to contribute to the super chat. You're the real hero. You're the real MVP. But let me get back to this. But, white America has assumed, that they got to pass. The common belief is if you follow the law, if you respect authority, if you comply, then the police will protect you, right? That's what they tell us, right? They are not worried about having a busted tail light when they drive down the street. That's not really a concern because that's just not something in their frame of thought, but that's something that Black folk truly consider, okay? But here's the thing, that faith has been rooted in the comfort of this racial privilege, this imaginary privilege that's been foisted upon them to make them feel like they're better. All right. But here's the thing, man. So now here comes Minnesota. All right. Minnesota has white people shook. All right. And now, this incident in Minneapolis, you got these federal ICE agents, part of the surge. And I think they call it Operation Metro Surge. They shot and killed a white man, Alex Peretti, 37-year-old professional ICU nurse, legal U.S. citizen, legally permitted to carry a gun, unalived by federal agents doing immigration enforcement. The video statements, conflict, whether he was brandishing the weapon or not, but I see it was on his hip. Here's the other thing. I know that there's some recent videos that popped up and folks are saying, well, he was cutting up the other day. But that was the other day. That's not today. Not the day he was unalive. You see what I'm saying? But the thing that you have to understand is it was striking to many people, especially those who long counted themselves as defenders of the Second Amendment. Somebody typed 2A in the chat room, all the 2A people. I definitely believe in exercising my Second Amendment rights. And I also am with making sure we have strong, well-trained, fair-minded law enforcement. Okay, so but again, there's caveats to all that. Okay, but see, here's the problem: when you go extreme one way or the other, then you start digging up the discrepancies between the ideologies. See, for decades, many white folk preached guns check tyranny until the situation arose where a gun owner was shot by agents of the state, i.e. police. See, for decades, the same people said back to blue until the blue, i.e. ICE and the federal enforcement, turned on someone who fit their own idea of lawful, responsible America, a white man. All right, and I just can't say it any. White people don't get shot like that. You understand? And I'm gonna dig into that a little bit more. But the bottom line is, for a long time, back to blue and white people's right to bear arms work together inside the same social racial order. See, the police enforced it. Gun rights protected the people at the top, and that's usually white folk. And racism made sure that the system stayed pointed in one direction, downward at the blacks. Somebody typed the blacks in the chat room, okay? And those ideas, they didn't conflict with each other because they were rarely tested against one another. But when a white man, a law-abiding, gun-owning, real American, is unalived by police and is filmed for everybody to see and everybody to make their own decisions as to what happened and who was at fault, those rules no longer line up neatly. Okay, see, the first thing you need to understand is that getting shot and killed by the police, that is not a white people problem. Okay, and I think we can agree that getting the idea that you get shot by the police, that's not something that white people conceptualize. Now, look, understand something. White people have their own set of problems. We know that. Whether the property tax is too high, whether the HOA rules about lawn height, these are their problems. Which insurance plan to use for Meemaw, put her in an old folks home, that's a white people problem. Getting shot and killed by the police is not a white people problem. That sounds more to me like a black people problem. And see, that's right up there with getting shot by the police. That ranks as high as can we afford to get man out of jail? You know what I'm saying? Or I saw a crackhead fighting a pigeon for a bag of chips in the alley next to the corner store. Those are black people problems. All right. Now here's the issue: the same system that was supposed to protect the white people through police enforcement has now killed a lawfully armed white man, someone who represents peak Americanness, for merely possessing a gun. Now, again, some people say, oh, well, maybe he went. No, he just had it on his hip. He was possessing the gun. And see, that's a direct attack on what's considered individual rights originally allotted to white men. And when I say the real American, understand something. You all know what I'm talking about, but let me lay it down where the cows can eat it. I'm talking about what this country has treated as the default American. When you say American, most people don't think black, you don't think Native American, you don't think Chinese, you think white American. Native born, male. Now contrast that with black people. Black folk have never been considered real Americans. I mean, we know we're real Americans. We fought to be Americans. We fought for all the rights, but look, that's just not, we're more conditional Americans, if you will. Okay? I mean, but see, here's the thing, and the reason I say that is because you can't be truly an American if you have the rights of an American, okay? And if those rights can be taken away whenever the system feels threatened, or citizenship, or should I say, our citizenship has always come with an asterisk. That's the whole point of the 14th Amendment. We were enslaved without rights. We were freed without rights until the 14th Amendment popped up. We were segregated under law, so that infringed on our rights. We were denied to vote. So you're citizens, but you're denied to vote. So it's conditional American. Same thing goes with the fact that we were banned from carrying arms. And then at this point, we're police with suspects. That's not the rights that white folk have. It's conditional. You see, every right we have, we've had to fight for. We've had to bleed for it. We've had to defend it repeatedly because those rights were never treated as permanent. That's why I say conditional American. So shout out to all the black folks and our ancestors for fighting like hell more than anybody else. And that's why I say this. I think we are the most American of all the Americans. There's nobody more American than us because we had to fight for all the rights that everybody was given free. On top of that, our ancestry predates most of the white people that have come to this country through their ancestors through Ellis Island. We predate ancestors by Ellis Island by hundreds of years. So you should be proud of being an American, if for nothing else, for what our ancestors had to do to fight. But bottom line is, we are still treated like conditional Americans, and that's not something we can walk away from. Now, for the first time in modern American history, white Americans are personally facing a choice they've never had to confront before. They're being forced to decide whether they care more about individual constitutional rights, like the right to bear arms, and like especially gun rights, the Second Amendment, 2A, or state power exercised through police law and enforcement. And see, historically, white folk never had to choose because the system worked for them. Police power and gun rights were aligned. Police protected this white racial social order, and gun rights were used, and they were defended as a white male entitlement. Okay, and racism, this racist casteism ensured that these two ideas never clashed. You know, black people didn't have the right to have guns, so we didn't have to worry about, it just wasn't an issue. Police knew who they were supposed to go after. But see, now they're clashing. And when forced to choose, here's the thing. Most white people are choosing to side with control, not freedom. In other words, they're willing to give up that sacred right to the Second Amendment as long as the police remain powerful and able to enforce this social order. Think about that. It exposes hypocrisy, number one. It shows that deep down inside, many of these people slogan, freedom, liberty, land of the free, justice for all, it was conditional. See, what really matters to them is maintaining control, even if that means sacrificing the very rights they claim define America. When you say we're willing to relinquish freedom in exchange for law enforcement, you're saying white Americans are comfortable outsourcing power and violence to the state as long as it keeps that hierarchy intact. And that there says a lot. You understand what I mean? See, Alex had first of all, Alex was a U.S. citizen. Alex, he was disarmed before he was shot. And then keep in mind, we had Renee Good that happened a few weeks before that, right there in Minnesota. You see? This man was illegally armed under Minnesota law, an open carry state. He had a concealed carry. It was legal. He had a permit. And then after the shooting, guess what happened? The federal officials, people in the White House, they said he should not have brought a gun to the protest. And that puts two things many white folk have never had to deal with. They hold it dear to their hearts. It's a direct conflict with the Second Amendment and support for law enforcement, for people who believe in gun rights and also have unconditional support for law enforcement. This is a very uncomfortable place. A law-abiding, licensed, gun-owning white man was killed by some cops, and the justification for it was that he had a gun with him. That's ridiculous. And so that's why you have the reaction has been split amongst these so-called conservatives and gun rights supporters. They're saying the government is weakening the Second Amendment by blaming Alex. That's true. And at the same time, the other conservative leaders say he should not have been armed around federal agents, even if the law allowed it. And see, that creates a real debate. Are gun rights absolute, or do they disappear when the police feel threatened, especially when federal officers are involved? And see, this contradiction is a source of confusion. And see, for years, back to blue, somebody type back to blue in the chat room. For years, back to blue meant police were always right, always protected, and rarely questioned. It meant the police held the moral high ground and kept order. But now people are now asking the question, you know, they never expected to have to act. If the government can kill a legal gun owner, you know, if he can do that, who's not threatening anyone, then it can happen to me. See? It can happen to me. And that's got folk thinking. See, Minneapolis, again, they've seen this is the second shooting. This is the second white person. Renee Good was a white woman. And yeah, they might have been able to ignore that. She wasn't armed, but the bottom line is, and that's an unfortunate incident, and you know, we you know, it's terrible. And whatever you feel about immigration rights, I definitely believe in I feel wholeheartedly we should get rid of these people who shouldn't be in our country. I'm 100% with that. How many of you all are 100% with deporting people who are in this country illegally? Let me make it easy for you. How many of you all are 100% with deporting illegal criminals from our country? If you 100 with that, type 100, okay? I'm 100% on that side. However, I don't want to see my rights infringed upon. I don't want to see any citizen or any individual within the United States have their right diminished just so law enforcement can execute their job. That's a dangerous road to head down, and they won't stop with them. Now, that being the case, here's the thing. All of this that we're dealing with sits in the intersection of two long-standing ideas in America: police as enforcers of social order and gun rights as protection against government abuse. So when you have the federal agents, when you have cops kill a white lawful gun owner, it first of all, that in itself makes people pay attention. But then it also breaks the sense of safety that many white Americans felt about it. And I keep saying white people, because black people never felt safe like that. This is a shock to you all. You are finally catching up. Shout out to the white people for catching up. And this is why I keep referring to white people. Now, of course, nobody expects to get shot, but black people, again, this is a black people problem. This is a black people problem. This is not a white people problem. Okay? Trying to figure out who you're going to sell your food stamps to, right? For 50 cents per food stamp, that's a black people problem, okay? Because you got to make that rent. That's the black people. That's not a white people problem, all right? Figuring out if you're going to go on a date with your cousin on Saturday night, that's a white people problem. You understand? You see the difference? This is what I'm saying. Stereotypes or not, I'm just pointing it out. We never conceptually believe that white folk will get shot by the police. And the truth is more white people do get shot by the police. And, you know, that's the reality, but that's still not something that we imagine. So, you know, here's where we are. We're in a situation where gun rights have collided with the police. And it's got folks shook. So, let's go ahead and look at the video footage. You guys hit the #1 button, and I have some very interesting footage for you all to check out. This is why it's amazing. I really enjoy it. This is a great time to examine society and see where we're going. And I hope you all, if you learn something, I should earn something. But we hadn't even got to that point yet. You guys make sure you hit the #1 button as you can hear. If you can't hear, let me know. All right, let's get it.
Gun is enough to get you shot by an ICE agent, you actually don't have the right to bear arms.
Good point. That's what he's saying. If all you need to do, if possessing a concealed carry, which means nobody can see it, if that's all it takes, then guess what? You don't even have the right to do that. Let's keep looking.
People with an unlicensed firearm and then marched towards police, yet was perceived as a non-threat. The other was stripped of his weapon and executed by 8 masked men for filming. If not Gestapo, why Gestapo shaped?
Yeah, good point. Now, before I go any further, you guys make sure you subscribe to the channel if you hadn't already. I hit all the tough topics. All right. I'm going to hit the tough topics. I'm not going to cheat you out of your time. If you're going to watch this, you're either going to be pissed off or you're going to be elated. But either way, you're going to be a lot more knowledgeable about the issue. So whether you like it or not, you should like this. If this is what we can do with YouTube, if I can give you postgraduate level conversations for an hour, 2 hours, the least you all can do is subscribe to the channel. We are marching towards 200,000. I'm sorry, marching towards 100,000. I need y'all to at least do me that favor. Hit the subscribe button. I don't care where you are around the world. Shout out to all my people in the UK. This is what's going on over here. We talking about guns and police. So you guys make sure you subscribe to the channel. The other thing is I need you to hit the like button. Go ahead and hit the like button. And as I always say, at some point, if you learn something, I should earn something. You don't owe me anything. But other than that, I don't want to mess up the rhythm. So let's keep moving.
This straight. The pro-gun people are now saying that the guy who was exercising his Second Amendment right of just having an open carry gun with a permit deserved to be executed.
Boy, oh man, this I know.
What?
That's what I said. What? This is personal. Somebody type personal.
So let me get this straight.
This is personal. This is real. This is real American stuff. No, yeah, this is it. All right. Let's leave with this little lady.
But he had a gun. The ICE officers probably felt so unsafe and they were acting in self-defense. Why the hell do you think we have the Second Amendment?
Right.
Go back and look at the history of it, because it's changed into something completely different now. But it was created to give power to the people.
Yeah.
In case a tyrannical government showed up and tried to use excessive force against them.
Yeah, so the cops can say it's illegal for you to have a gun around them. I don't think that's what the founders of the country conceptualized, in my opinion, based on what I read, Thomas Jefferson, and all the rest of these folks. But let's keep listening.
Also, he was legally carrying. All I'm saying is I'm thinking about.
Now, she has a nose ring, which indicates to me that she's probably, quote unquote, from the left. But here's the thing, left or right or whatever, it's still the Second Amendment. And whatever your political leanings are, you should not want anybody to infringe upon your rights. And again, the crazy part is when you start looking at the responses, people are cool with giving up their rights just for the comfort of having the idea of the police being able to do whatever they want. And that's just, I find that ridiculous. Let's move on to the next one. Hit the #1 button. Let's keep it pushing. Let's see what the sister has to say.
That the reason why the Second Amendment exists is to protect U.S. citizens from the government. So when the government starts doing illegal things, like, I don't know, having masked men run around cities, kidnapping.
Hold on. To me, okay, I also believe, and I may be wrong, and I don't think the founding fathers conceptualized this, but I do believe that the Second Amendment can also protect you from scallywags and hooligans and so on and so forth. So let's keep that in mind too. All right, but let's keep so we're not just gonna limit it to the government. It's a lot of folk out there. We want to make sure we keep that iron for them too. All right, as they used to say, as in the elegant higher level English classes of the most elite colleges here in universities in campuses in America. There's a saying that says, and you can quote me on this, stay strapped or get clapped. All right. And you can probably find that cited in many legal theories and social order theories at Harvard, Yale, and so on and so forth. But let's continue.
People for committing misdemeanors, which is what immigrating illegally is, a misdemeanor. Maybe murdering U.S. citizens for protesting. Once that happens, we have every right to use our Second Amendment to protect ourselves.
Yeah, you should. I don't. You'd be stupid to give up your rights, any one of them. But let's keep pushing. All right.
That's right. Okay. So we want Second Amendment rights, right? The right to bear arms. We get mad when
No, we don't want them. They're our right. They're a right. It's not a want. It's a right.
we try to put more restrictions on it because of school shootings. And then when someone uses their Second Amendment right, like Alex Preddy, excuse me, I said his last name wrong. We use that as justification as to why he was murdered, because he had a gun, even though he had been disarmed by the time they shot him 10 times. Mm-hmm. So, someone tell me where I'm missing whatever. It's a justification.
Yeah, I mean it's a BS justification, but it's a justification nonetheless. Let me explain something to you. All the white people, the black people will agree with me. We've heard a lot of BS justifications for folk getting shot, and it's not even because they had a gun. If the cops even think you have a gun, okay, they can tee off on you. I mean, we've had, and then there's always the Philando Castile matter, which also happened in Minnesota. He was a licensed concealed carry. The police asked him to give him the ID, and then he got shot. That was on video also, but it didn't have this much of an uproar.
I'm going to assume you agree with what's going on. I was planning on posting a video, some bullshit, beauty, whatever. And then that man got gunned down in the streets by the death squad. And if you are a creator who has any degree of a following, and you're not saying anything, you're actively posting today, even within the past, 5 hours,
right? And
you're not saying anything, I'm going to assume you agree with what's going on.
Yeah, you can't be a 2A advocate. You can't. Don't say, you no longer can say that you're a gun rights advocate, or even an advocate for constitutional rights if you find it necessary or feel compelled to blame this lawful gun owner with a permit for his death. You need to go back to coward corner, tuck your tail, and go away. You're just a coward. I mean, that is not what this country is about. And here's my response to anybody who says, well, were they supposed to wait for him to pull his weapon? If you're afraid of a holstered firearm, you shouldn't be a police officer. You're too scary to be a police officer. Look, it's a stressful business, but you decided that this was going to be your career occupation, but you need to go find something else to do. Okay, that's not your occupation. It's like a man with nervous hands. You're not going to be able to be a surgeon. You're not a surgeon. Okay, you got to move on to something else. All right, that's not how this works. You can't just go around shooting lawful gun owners because you're scared. If you're scared, that's a you problem, not a his problem. So let's keep it pushing.
I understand about not wanting to get political on your channel, because I don't either. I don't talk politics, but we're beyond that. Supporting this administration and what's going on is beyond politics at this point. Yeah. We are now into the area of morality, legality, and the truth. I don't know. I may have to unfollow a lot of people.
Yeah, go on follow, baby. Go on follow. Let's see what this cat has to say. Hit the number one.
About the Second Amendment until it actually matters. You maggots don't get to waive the Constitution when it fits your narrative.
What's going on with this fella's hair? This has distracted me. I want to listen to him, but the hair has kind of distracted me a little bit, sir. You have a Nigerian forehead, okay? Are you part Nigerian? Your forehead. No, I'm not used to seeing this type of forehead on my my white American counterparts. This is clearly the forehead of a Nigerian, and to me, sir, I'm just saying, maybe your little bun is a little too, just pull your hair follicles out, but I'm going to try to listen. I'm going to try to listen to the rest of what he's saying, but as he speaks, his little hair bun is bobbling, and that's distracting, but we'll continue. Okay, we'll continue.
And then abandon it when it doesn't. You don't get to scream in your inbred voices, my rights, my freedom, my guns, the Second Amendment, right to bear arms, one day.
First of all, I don't appreciate you impersonating, okay, the redneck contingent of my broadcast. I got plenty of rednecks here. I got some white supremacists, racists. They love coming over here being mad at me, and I don't care. I want all you all to know that I appreciate you hillbilly pickup truck driving, banging your cousin on the weekend, folk. I appreciate it. I want you here. Stay here with me. I want you to be here with me. I'm gonna tell you the truth. Not gonna hold back. I'm like your football coach that made your big ass lift weights, do push-ups. I made you better. All right. All right. So you will not sit here and disrespect the West Virginia contingent and the Florida Panhandle contingent of my viewership, sir. So you withhold those insults, or we may result to fisticuffs. Let's continue, bobblehead, sir.
And then say, he shouldn't have had a gun on him. He shouldn't have been armed. He shouldn't have been at a protest with a gun. The next, because federal agents murdered someone and then spun some cockamamie story that you guys are all sucking up.
Somebody spell cockamamie. I want anybody, good spellers, I want all my good spellers to spell cockamamie. Go ahead.
Lying about a legally permitted holstered weapon with tons of video proof proving them to be liars.
Yes, I bet he has all the Harry Potter books. I bet every Harry Potter book that's come out, I'm sure he has it. But let's continue.
Believe in the Second Amendment, you believe in it for everyone, not just the people you agree with. You don't get to pick and choose whose rights are worth defending. Either the Constitution matters, or you're just using it when it benefits you. And guess what? That's not how it works.
Look, man, look, you know, whatever, man. I really didn't hear anything that cat said, but I you know, more the same. Let's keep looking. Hit the number one button, fam.
Said in a Sunday interview, quote, "You cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort."
This is the press. This is what White House had to say. You know, Carolyn Levitt, little lady there, I think she's pregnant with her second baby. So let's see what she has to say. Sips water, proceeds to think through the question. Here comes the response.
With a protest. Does the president believe the Second Amendment rights remain in effect even when protesting?
The president supports the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding American citizens. Absolutely. There has been no greater supporter or defender of the right to bear arms than President Donald J. Trump.
Now, hold on a minute. The other day, y'all said, before you got rid of that little, you know, the little Gestapo dude that was running ICE in Minnesota, he was like, we had a gun. So that officers felt in danger. Y'all changed up on us. Okay, I'm glad you did. I'm happy about it. But that's not what you said the first time. You all were not 100%. Y'all was back to blue, and now you had to come back because the 2A people said, no, hold on a minute. They made that phone call. Hey, you need to calm down with that. You're messing up deer hunting season. But anyway, let's keep listening.
So while Americans have a constitutional right to bear arms, Americans do not have a constitutional right to impede lawful immigration enforcement operations. And any gun owner knows that when you are carrying a weapon, when you are bearing arms, and you are confronted by law enforcement, you are raising the assumption of risk and the
raising the assumption of risk because I'm packing? Do I raise the assumption of risk when I have a taser? Or I don't know, when I have bear spray? When I'm driving down the street that's lawfully meant for me to drive down? I don't know. Is this new law? Somebody type new law in the chat room. New law?
Risk of force being used against you. And again, that's unfortunately.
Yeah, look, black people, I want you to understand this is an uproar, okay? She doesn't know, she's everywhere with this. We support the Second Amendment 100%. End of story. Nothing else to say, all right? He was a lawful firearm. He had a permit. He shouldn't have been bothered. They should have left him alone, period. That's it. That's what you do with the Second Amendment, or otherwise you start infringing on all the other rights. Okay, and we don't like that. Let's keep listening.
What took place on Saturday?
We know what took place on Saturday has brought about a lot of confusion. Let's keep listening.
Why did ICE murder Alex Preddy? ICE didn't murder anyone. They were defending themselves from an assassin. How is he an assassin?
Right.
He had a gun. Sure, he had a gun, but he also had a license to open carry, which is legal in Minnesota and something that the Republican Party champions. But also, the video evidence clearly shows that he was actually just helping a woman off the ground who had been shoved to the ground by ICE.
Now, he was doing a little bit more than that. Before that, he was in the street. He was filming, kind of, I get why the police were agitated. He was filming, and they don't want this written, recorded record of their activities, because this could come back to bite them in a few years when Donald Trump is no longer in office. I think the Tim Walz, who's the governor of Minnesota, has actually asked the citizenry in Minnesota to document everything they see via video, and I'm assuming they're going to put it in some database and review it in the future. Okay, so of course the ICE are like, nah, we got to stop this video footage from happening, because it can come back to bite us in a couple of years when we don't have DJT 47 in there to have our back. All right, there's no statute of limitations on murder in pretty much any country, any county in Minnesota. So I understand why ICE would want to stop that, but still, okay, he wasn't brandishing the weapon. He didn't point it at anybody. It was holstered the whole time. In fact, prior to him being shot multiple times, he was disarmed. Okay, so let's keep listening.
And also, he didn't have his hands on his guns when he was down on the ground. His gun was taken from him, and then he was shot and killed. The details are not relevant. He was a domestic terrorist who was out to kill ICE, and they defended themselves. Domestic.
And see, here's the thing, black folk, look, I know you all are agitated because you all have heard. I mean, this man had no significant criminal record. They are now spending time. This conversation is symbolic between two parties, the pro 2A and the pro back to blue. And these are the arguments that are going back and forth. And we've heard when black people are unalived by the cops in questionable circumstances, we've always heard how they go about trying to destroy their reputation post-death. And see, the reason this is so shocking, because this is a white man. All right. And, for the most part, this is peak Americanness that we're looking at. This country, and I'm sure there's some white nationals, all the white nationals, y'all make sure y'all wave. I'm sure there are plenty of white nationals in the chat that will tell you this is white man's country, it's way from white man. And now here you have a white man getting shot by the police. This is the American that's supposed to be protected. You understand? And so, having to disparage this man's reputation and name, he was clearly, a normal guy, no criminal record. He had a permit to carry a weapon, which means he had a clean background. So, the guy's a VA nurse for crying out loud. I mean, how much more harmless can you be? It's not like he was selling drugs for the cartel or anything. So let's keep listening.
Terrorist? I thought you said he was an assassin.
Yeah.
Listen, the point is Ilhan Omar.
Change the subject. So yeah, I mean, it's these folks are in a tizzy, but this is what happens when you inherit these extreme views. Hit the number 1 button. Let's keep pushing.
NRA has released a statement on Twitter speaking out against the comments made by the Trump administration. So
you guys may not know who the NRA is. I'm not sure if you National Rifle Association. They, are definitely pro 2A. This organization was pretty much, birthed, raised, and maintains, and advocates for our rights as Americans to bear arms. So let's listen to what they have to say. And this is a big deal for them to come out and address this. Hit the number 1 button if you can hear.
A very short statement, but it is in reference to that quote from the U.S. attorney for the Central District of California, who had said that if you approach law enforcement with a gun, there is a high likelihood they will be legally justified in shooting you. Don't do it.
What the hell does that mean? If you approach law, you mean if you have a gun holstered on your hip and you happen to be walking down the street and a cop is walking in the same direction and you approach him, he should fear for his life? I mean, think about that. That is broad, wide open language that clearly sets the wrong precedent. And so now the NRA has to step out. Mind you, these largely Republican / conservative folk talking to each other. This is an in-house fight. You know, whatever your political leanings are, this is hot stuff. Let's keep listening. Hit the
The
number.
NRA said in response, this sentiment from the first assistant U.S. attorney for the Central District of California is dangerous and wrong.
Yeah.
Responsible public voices should be awaiting a full investigations, not making generalizations and demonizing law-abiding citizens. Other groups have spoken out against this as well, including Gun Owners of America, who said they are saddened by the loss of life in Minneapolis. They also condemned the attorney's comments.
Yeah, hell yeah.
We also have the editor-in-chief of The Reload saying this is an insane claim, and he's clearly a right-wing guy. And here's another right-wing guy.
So again, this is quote-unquote right-wing versus right-wing, right? So that's what makes this just that's what makes anybody who observes shook. It's like when it's like when the LGBT community put out the T's. That was like, wow, they don't like the T's anymore. Wow, yeah, the T's, you're going too far. All right, let's keep listening.
Execution by ICE's occupation in Minneapolis, Minnesota, is starting to unravel complex questions as to what are the real protections around the Second Amendment. Many are wondering, why isn't the NRA coming out with a statement? So if we want to understand why
You're a little late, they already came out, but go ahead. Do you even have a pistol? That's what I need, though. Do you even have one, or are you just causing trouble? That's what I need, because it seems like you just out here messy. I don't even know if you have any knowledge as to the difference between a bowling pin and a firing pin. But I'm gonna let you keep speaking, man. But it seems like you're being messy.
the NRA has not come out with a public statement yet. We need to look into who's leading the NRA. The president, Bill Bockenberg. And Bill Bockenberg is a 3-time Trumper. Back in 2020, when Trump was alleging that there was voter fraud, he actually hired an auditing company to see into the machines whether or not Joe Biden winning was fraudulent activity. And when the auditing company could not find it, he didn't want to pay them. So there was a massive lawsuit, which is currently still going.
Okay, you made your point. We're gonna move on to somebody else more entertaining and interesting, because we want to make sure these people are entertained and interested. Hit the number 1 button if you can hear clearly.
Put out a statement on what happened to that man, Alex Peretti. Let you know that is fucking crazy. Never would I ever thought.
You watch that potty mouth, sir. Okay, you're not going to mess up my family-friendly broadcast. Somebody type family-friendly in the chat room so that YouTube doesn't demonetize this. But let's keep going. Watch it.
That the NRA would be on our side, literally, because there was someone who put up saying that if you bring a gun, police have the right to kill you, and the NRA was like, no, along with other people.
You hear that? That's basically, if you have a gun, the cops can. No, hell no. It's going too far. You know, and that's why they had to quickly walk that back, but they wouldn't have, but for folks saying, no, we're not going to do that. Oh, hell no.
This is crazy in the world that we live in, because that man was literally helping women, making sure that they were okay. And then they bombarded him, took away his gun, and then literally executed him for.
All right, let's be honest. He was look, let's be honest, okay? He wasn't just helping the lady. He was fucking with the police. Excuse the language. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. He was messing with the police at first. He was all in the street. He was, you know, I get it. I understand why they were a little agitated. I get that. Okay. And then he went to the side, and, you know, but then you don't get unalive for that. And hell, he's a white man. He's supposed to be able to mess with the police. If white people are supposed to be able to yell at the police and say, damn it, Fred, you've been a jerk since high school. Give me the damn ticket. That's white people privilege. Damn it. What is America when a white man can't yell at the goddamn police for pulling them over on the way to Starbucks? You kidding me? Every white man should be able to yell at the law enforcement officer, and they don't do a darn thing. They should be able to stand toe-to-toe, nose-to-nose, give them a piece of their mind, snatch the ticket out their hand, and drive off in a hurry, and nothing happened. The minute white men are getting shot down by the doggone law enforcement, the country's going to hell. That's what's going on. All right, this is why we still talk. Had this been a black dude got shot by the police, we be like, oh, well, you should have complied. Somebody's type, you should have complied in the chat room. That's what you all would have said. Tell the truth. Where my racist people at? All my racist, bigoted people, raise your hand. All right? I want you to put the KKK sign up there, and you know damn well you wouldn't give a damn. We would not be having, there would not be 3,000 TikTok videos talking about, oh, no, this is infringement on our right. None of that. Had he been a shade past pale, you know darn well I'm telling the truth, man. Let's let this cat keep
for everyone to watch. This is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
As I've said before, if this does not tell you to get your Second Amendment if you're a United States citizen and to carry, now's your turn. Because these people are getting very bold.
These people, you mean the law enforcement? You don't think the law enforcement has been bold before? You shooting unarmed black folk, you don't think that was bold. It's just bold now. Somebody type bold. It's bold now. When white man getting shot, it's bold. Black people, oh, hell no, they're doing their job. All right, give them an accommodation.
People who are trying just to make sure that they can protest legally, mind you, that's within our rights. My heart goes out to that family because that is just seeing every different angle of that.
Thoughts and prayers.
Just
Thoughts and
wild.
Prayers. Come on, let's keep it pushing.
Shit,
Thoughts
so
and prayers.
crazy that we live in a world.
Yeah.
Where literally,
okay, this guy. Let me do something because let me do something. I want to play a little music here because I don't want to get what's it called? I don't want to get a copyright strike, but let me play a little music in the background and we'll listen to what this guy has to say. Hit the number 1 button when I place. I want to make sure everything plays. All right, let's listen to.
I wasn't shocked when you guys gave up the First Amendment, and I wasn't shocked when you gave up the Fourth Amendment and the 10th Amendment and the 14th Amendment at Trump's behest. But the Second
Amendment. I mean, this is all over political news. Look, black folk, I know this is not something you're into, but I find it interesting. Okay, this is what people are talking about right now because it means a lot. It has a lot of meaning. Okay, so let's just bear with me. All right. I know.
Come on, guys. Guns are your whole personality. Guns are your Zoom backgrounds. Your decorative lapel pins. Guns are how you show displeasure at documents. Guns are your Christmas cards. There's no human activity that can't be made better without the pulsing heat of your Armalite best friends. From Texas, we cook bacon a little different.
Cooking bacon on
Machine gun bacon.
Man, get out of here. Just corny, man. Ted Cruz, we have the corniest senator in America. All right, I'm gonna let a couple of more of these videos.
Go ahead and watch this low-res, zoomed-in, highest quality video that I was able to find.
Yeah, that's just them showing.
Was he reaching for his pocket? Was he reaching for his concealed carry?
What gets to me is the desperate attempt to justify the unjustifiable. It's not the simple-mindedness, it's not the ignorance of the fact, it is the desire to justify the unjustifiable.
Right. They got to justify it. They're trying to justify it because if you don't find a reason to justify it, then you got to blame the cops. And there's a contingent of people that would prefer that the cops maintain control and order and moral authority when there is a wrongdoing like a shooting, than to call them on it. And see, we've had to deal with this in the black community for a tremendously long duration of time. But, now it's come head to head with something that's very important to most thoughtful Americans, and that is the Second Amendment. You're criminalizing this man for possessing a firearm, which is granted to him under the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. And that's what's throwing up all sorts of red flags. Let's keep.
What was he reaching for? You're wondering what Alex Britti was reaching for. He was just handling the cell phone that he'd been holding. And you would know it if you'd done 4 seconds of research, but that would require intellectual honesty. And it's easier and faster and more practical to simply ask a question that has an easy answer.
Yeah, it's a cop-out. It just means you're cowardice. You know, you don't want to ask a tough question.
But it's an answer you don't want. Alex Brady did 2 things. He protected a woman that was being pushed around and shoved to.
Hey, look, don't ban anybody, you guys. Let everybody talk. Let everybody talk. We're not here to ban anybody. This is an open conversation. This is a conversation that all Americans need to have. I want everybody to hear this. All right. I think it's a good idea to have conversations like this. And if we're just going to be on YouTube, let's not waste our time. Let's, other stuff you could do today, but you're here. And let's argue about it. All right.
The ground just for being there. And then he was recording. And you would know what he was holding if you weren't trying to confirm your bias, just like the people that were there would have known that he was just holding a phone if they weren't so rabidly focused on proving that they are stronger and better than everybody else.
Yeah.
This video is not the flex you think it is.
Yeah. So, folk are in an uproar. I'll let a couple more videos play, and then we're going to go ahead and move forward with the broadcast.
You should really be thinking about the fact that if someone in Minneapolis can legally carry a concealed weapon with all the permits, all the paperwork done and everything, still be murdered and then have that concealed weapon used as justification for his murder, then the Second Amendment does not exist. If federal agents have the legal ability to unload an entire clip into your body and then use your concealed weapon as justification for doing so while your corpse is rotting on the fucking ground, you don't have a Second Amendment. You have, at best, the ability to maybe hide your gun sometimes. Now, as a communist and a history nerd, I think I'd be remiss to not mention that a lot of us have never really had the Second Amendment to begin with, right? The Second Amendment in the United States was never meant for everybody. It was meant for a really select group of predominantly white people. Everyone else has, at best,
white men with money, not you poor people. No poor people, just rich white men. So you poor whites, not you either. Okay, they could give you a gun. You could join the militia, but it wasn't for you either. Let's go.
Circumstantial rights. And in fact, I would argue the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms and form a militia and what have you has more been used to justify settler colonial activity and the mass attacks against black and brown communities in the United States than it really has ever to protect the rights of American citizens. That being said, I don't think I'm like a fucking liberal or anything. I think that under no pretext should arms and ammunitions be taken away from the working people and that agitation is necessary should such a thing occur. But left, right, whatever, I think a lot of us probably just need to be looking at what's going on in Minneapolis and recognize that what we're seeing in real time is a confirmation of the total erosion of rights that many of us have taken for granted as just being givens for a very long while. If they can kill him, they can kill you, and they can use the same justification for doing that. And as gun owners, I think it's really important that we recognize that and try to think about what we should do to stop that from happening again. Pause, rewording that, pause, that's not what I meant, that's not what I meant, it's not what I meant. Anyway, though, something to think about as always, Salamu alaikum.
Anyway, he's just rambling at this point. Here we go. Look, I think this is a very complicated subject. I want to talk about it. I hope you guys hang with me and let me get to the end here. But again, family, let's just talk. Are we ready to talk? We ready to learn something here today? Here's a popular myth. It says that, American political identity is built on freedom and liberty and gun rights and restraint on tyranny. Okay? But history tells something different. You understand? Now, when we talk about this racial caste system that we have, it's never been a freedom ideology. It's always been an order ideology. Its core priority has been maintaining the racial hierarchy, even when it requires expanding state power in ways that would eventually limit white folks' autonomy. Over and over again, white political culture has accepted a stronger, more aggressive state as long as that power and control was aimed at someone else. Who's the someone else? Native Americans, black people, brown people, whatever. And we've seen this pattern before. During slavery, poor white people supported slave patrols. Most of the poor whites didn't even have slaves. You know, there was only 100 slaves in the American South who owned, 100 white families in the American South who owned more than 100 slaves. That was a rich man's endeavor. These poor white people were living horrible. But they gave them little jobs and whatnot. They made a few dollars. The bottom line is they were armed groups that stopped people. All right, they search homes. They use violence without any rules. And those patrols, they didn't protect freedom. They protected control. And after slavery ended, white Americans supported the black codes and Jim Crow laws. After the slavery ended, we had something called Reconstruction. 12 years of prosperity for black people. You even had black people in Congress. You had black people who were sheriffs and mayors, et cetera, all throughout the South. And so they instituted those slave codes. People call it Jim Crow, right? And these laws gave police more power, right? And took away basic rights from mostly black people. But eventually, from anyone seen as a problem. One of those rights was a Second Amendment right. Now, later on, during the rise of mass incarceration, laws like the mandatory minimum sentence, stop and frisk, militarized police made the state more powerful. And white America mostly supported these policies because they were aimed at black and brown people, and they did so in the name of law and order. I mean, you know how those people are, right? You don't want to go down there. Don't go across the tracks. You know that. They need it, you know? And so this is why it's accurate to describe police as the outsourced enforcement arm of the racial caste system, or people say white supremacy, whatever. All right? I understand. But the modern racial control does not rely on mobs or vigilantes. It relies on professionalized violence. It relies on uniforms, badges, courts, and prisons. And the police are not viewed merely as public servants. They're viewed as the shock troops to maintain social order. Outsourcing enforcement allows more distance. Folks see what's happening, what the police doing. Oh, I didn't do it. And it provides them with this psychological comfort. The state does the dirty work. It does it cleanly, it does it legally, and it does it at arm's length. And see, this is also why sacrificing this one white man, Alex Peretti, it becomes acceptable to most of these folk. That's why they're making excuses for a violation of the Second Amendment. He shouldn't have possessed the gun at all near the police. That's crazy. See, white supremacy is collective. It's not about the individual. An individual man, even a lawful gun owner, is expendable if preserving the system's ability to discipline black and brown people requires it. And it's not just discipline, it's control them. And history shows that clearly. During slavery, poor whites were economically exploited. They didn't have excuse my language, they didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. But they still defended this racist system that probably treated them worse than anybody else in the country. This is how horrible it was. White people, poor white people, got treated like trash. Some of the white people were against slavery because, like, damn, I can't even get a job because they got slaves to do it. We need to end slavery just so, I can compete with those wages. Even during the labor movements in the early 20th century, white workers who challenged the racial hierarchy, they were beat up too. Did you know that? Did you know white people got beat? And they were police surveilled, they were jailed. During the civil rights era, white activists who aligned themselves too close with black people in that liberation, they were targeted by the state. There's plenty of white people that got killed, and I talked about that the other broad. Plenty of white people doing, whether we're talking about doing the slavery, who were part of the Underground Railroad, who used their houses and businesses to hire slaves. Many of them lost their wealth, got sued. A lot lost their life. Because, see, there's an unspoken rule that always has to be the same. Whiteness offers protection only as long as you align with the power structure. As long as you do what you're supposed to do and play your part to control these brown people and these black people. And see, that's what brings us back to the back to blue. That slogan has never been about safety or law or constitutional principle. It's about preserving authority, okay? And police are seen as the barrier between us and them and the force that prevents social leveling. So when a police officer kills even a white gun owner, that's a tragedy. But it's reframed, you see? The citizen is blamed, right? It's the right is reinterpreted and the Constitution suddenly becomes contextual. Police power must remain unquestioned if the racial caste system is to survive. And this moment, it also confirms what black folk have always known about the Second Amendment. It's conditional. Gun rights have been tolerated when they reinforce the status quo and remain symbolic. The moment firearms are associated with protesting police, resisting enforcement, or challenging federal authority, even a white gun owner, it becomes a problem. And see, we saw this when California passed its major gun restrictions after the Black Panthers openly carried firearms, throughout the country, throughout the state. So what happened was, many of you all may not know this. So Bobby Seale, Huey P. Newton, they used to hang around, they were in Northern Cali all the time. And, they started doing research on gun rights, and they figured out that California was an open carry state. They also cobbled that together with the fact that, a citizen has a right to observe the police conducting his business, even on stop and search. So what these dudes would do, they would show up when the police were pulling over black people in Oakland and San Francisco, really mostly Oakland, and they would pull up, they would hop out, they would exercise their open carry rights under the Second Amendment to bear arms. So here they are, a bunch of black dudes just hopped out of a car with the black berets on and the black jackets, and they will observe the police. And then they said, well, the Supreme Court says we have a right to resist unlawful arrest. This agitated the heck, you fill in the blank. This agitated the heck out of the police, because see now, you got these armed black men. Keep in mind, we talking about the 60s, man. We talking about, we fresh out of Jim Crow. You how dare you? Who do you think you are? And you got these black men saying, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I handle. And then they got guns. So you really don't have that firearm advantage. So of course, took it a little too far. They decided to open carry at the California legislature during a session, and it created a big fiasco, and that gave rise to California passing these major gun restrictions, and that's where they came from. And so we see it now. Okay, we see it now. Shout out to Fire for Effect. The priority is clear. Police authority first, racial order second. Okay, state legitimacy third, and individual gun rights dead last. Shout out to Fire for Effect. I'm gonna call that cowardly. You see, white supremacy doesn't want a person. They don't want a personal risk or moral accountability. It wants uniforms. It wants badges. It wants law. It wants courts. It wants violence that's clean. It wants it that's legalized and delegated. And if maintaining the system requires surrendering some of their rights, some of these white rights, so if it requires silencing some dissent or sacrificing some white bodies, many of these white folk are willing to pay that price. So let's be clear about what we see in this moment and what it reveals and why white folk are shook. White supremacy is not afraid of losing rights if it's afraid of losing control, and is willing to sacrifice white people to do it. And when forced to choose control, beats freedom, and order beats liberty, and police power beats the Constitution. That's not confusion, family. That's clarity. Okay? Think about that. And see, again, I told you a little bit about the Black Panther Party. That actually happened in 1967. But there's all, there's also Wilmington, North Carolina, 1898. You had a multiracial, democratically elected government. You had white elites organize a violent coup. They were aided by the cops. They were aided by the militia. The black officials were expelled. Black neighborhoods were burned to the ground. Dozens of people were killed. And there was no real punishment. And the event was later reframed as a race riot blamed on black people. And that lesson is clear. When democracy threatens the racial hierarchy, order and control beat legality. Law enforcement is not neutral, it is corrective. Rights only matter until the hierarchy feels unsafe. Same thing happened at Kent State. Somebody typed Kent State, 1970. This is a white college. They were protesting the Vietnam War. The National Guard opened fire on American college students, killed 4 kids. Initially, you had outrage, as you can imagine, but it turned to justification. The narrative emerged blaming those children, blaming those students. And then there was no serious accountability to follow. And that moment proved that even white lives are disposable once protest challenges state authority. The sympathy disappears when power is questioned. A white protester opposing the police's state power is quickly reclassified from citizen to threat. That's what you see happening right now. Look at how all these people in the chat room, you all, right there in the chat room, you blaming Alex Peretti for his own death. You're part of the problem. You don't care about your damn rights. That's not what you're here for. You just talking. The black community's known about this for years. I mean, we have an incident that happened as recent as 1985. The Philadelphia police dropped bombs on black neighborhoods. It was called the MOVE organization. They killed 11 people, including kids, burned down the entire block. This is Philly. And what was the public response? Nada. Shout out to Dre Harden. Hell, the police, they defended the police. Yeah, they paid them some settlements, but no real criminal accountability. And see, the thing is, police violence against black bodies has been normalized. Militarized policing has been accepted because it enforces the racial order. And see, justice was never the priority. Preserving police dominance was. And this same priority shaped COINTELPRO, FBI campaign against black political resistance. Whether you're talking about Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, the Black Panthers, whether we talking about illegal surveillance, misinformation, harassment, assassination, all these are violations of our constitutional rights. And what was the public's response? Silence. Gave them a movie. You can have a movie and a couple of books, but silence is what you get. And the abuse was justified as a matter of national security. Constitutional rights become optional the moment black power emerged. And once again, the state is trusted more than the citizens. Hell, even if you look at World War II, you got Japanese Americans who've been here for decades. They were citizens, some of them born here, in prison without due process. And white America supported it. So this is nothing new. These people who are blaming Alex Spread, you the same people. These are your people. You willing to throw away people's rights for the sake of maintaining the racial hierarchy. Rights were suspended in the name of order and security. And that moment showed that rights in the country are conditional, and the state is trusted to decide when liberty applies and when it doesn't. And if white America accepted that, sacrificing one-armed man today is not a moral leap, it's business as usual. Hey, we can talk about Ruby Ridge. Have y'all ever heard of Ruby Ridge? And there was another situation that happened in Waco. I was a young man at that time. You had white people, armed white people, and they clashing with the federal authorities. You see? And then what followed after that? Violence, state violence, and there was no sympathy. You see? Well, not enough. You see? But it didn't lead to dismantling that law enforcement power or tapering it down. The response was reframing. Hey, these were isolated incidents. These people were extremists. They were exceptions. And the system absorbed the damage and moved on. And that's exactly what we see happening right now with this tragedy, without any transformation. So across every one of those cases, the hierarchy of priorities is consistent. Police authority comes first, racial order comes second, state legitimacy comes third, individual rights dead last. That means the right to speech, protest, gun ownership. They're not, that's not a right. Okay, that's not a principle. They're tools. Shout out to Dre Harlan. And when these tools threaten the structure, they're discarded. And see, that's because police are not viewed as employees of the public. They're viewed as guardians of control. They're viewed as enforcers of boundaries, of protectors of the hierarchy. And this is why abuse is tolerated. This is it. Killings are rationalized. Brutality is excused, even when you see it videotaped for yourself. And the police don't work. Look, man. Look. Police do the work y'all want that you don't want to do yourself. And that's not accidental. It's strategic. Especially people who support the racial hierarchy, the white supremacists. And I'm not talking about all white folk. I'm definitely not doing that. But those of you all, you want the cops to do your dirty work. You want to be able to remain distant. You don't care what color he is, white, black, Hispanic, whatever. Blue badge. He could be dead wrong. See, it's easier to hire out your violence and legalize oppression and cruelty rather than enforce the hierarchy face to face. So yes, the system is cowardly, and you all are cowardly if you support the infringement on other people's rights because you don't want to do it. I want you to think about what I'm saying. See, the willingness to sacrifice a man's life, your rights to bear arms, and your constitutional principles to preserve police supremacy tells us everything we need to know about white supremacy. It's not about freedom. It never has been. It's about control. And control is worth any price, including one of your own. That says a lot about you. It says you don't even control yourself. You think you special. Well, all my white people that you really think you special, but you're not. And we're going to dig into that a little bit later on. Now, I've had an opportunity to review a lot of different comments. And when I look at the comments section on the various social media outlets, what you see is not confusion. It's a fight. And Back the Blue is winning. A large number of the commenters say in plain language that they are fine with police killing somebody if the person gets in the way of law enforcement. That's what you all said, like many of you all in here. You see the comments like, dude attacked federal agents and he got popped for it. You see, nothing wrong here, fair and square. You see, you know why we don't get shot by ICE agents? Because we don't go there. We don't get in their way. We stay home. So what they're really saying is that your rights only exist as long as you don't challenge the police. And I'm not saying you should be out there messing with the damn police. I'm not saying that. Leave the damn police alone. Again, I am 100% in support of sending all these illegals home. You understand me? Crime or no crime, send them home. I don't like the way in which the enforcement is taking place. I believe that Black and brown people, immigrants, are being targeted. I believe the way in which the enforcement is taking place is racially charged. That's what I believe. You understand? And I don't, and until you show me a whole bunch of white immigrants from Canada getting rounded up and sent home, I'm going to maintain that belief. Till you show me a bunch of folk from Ukraine getting rounded up and sent home, I'm going to keep believing that. But again, they're defending the state's power. The police come first. Individual rights come last. If the cops say you're a problem, then whatever happens to you is justified. Then there's a smaller but very vocal group. That's where all the videos came from. The 2A crowd. Shout out to all the 2A people. They feel betrayed. They're saying things like, I'm not losing my First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment, Fourth, Fifth Amendment rights temporarily for security. They're pointing out the contradiction that the man had a legal gun, he didn't pull it, and he still got shot and killed. And for them, this looks like the government saying, if you have a gun, we don't like you, and we can kill you anyway. That's what it looks like to them. And that group understands the danger, but they're outnumbered. And the real conflict in the comments is simple. Most people are choosing order over freedom. They're basically choosing control over freedom. They would rather live under a strong police state than risk losing control under this racial hierarchy. And that's why you see comments like, you know, impeding federal law enforcement is a serious crime, don't agitate the red coats and people will get hurt and die, and they deserve it. You see, being sarcastic and facetious, but still people openly say they're willing to give up their rights if it means the police stay in charge. And so when you step back and you look at the whole comment section, the message is clear. Back the blue beats the Second Amendment. State control beats individual rights. And a lot of people are okay with that, as long as they believe the police are hurting the right people. Somebody type right people. You see? So again, this is ugly. This is very ugly. And a lot of Americans don't care about freedom the way they claim they do, the way we should. You care about control. You're fine with the police killing someone if that person makes the state uncomfortable. And let's be real. You've been fine with it for a long time, haven't you? Come on, white people. Come to the front. This is your day. I've been on you white people for about 3 or 4 days now. I'm going to go to the black people tomorrow. But I got to round this Friday up with you white people. You've been fine with it for a long time, haven't you? Tell the truth. As long as it was happening to black people, somebody typed the blacks in the chat room. Somebody typed the blacks in the chat. Were you all right when it was the blacks? Right? See, some of y'all cheered. Some of you all excused it. You justified it. Hell, you mocked the dead. Look. We watched. Remember how hard y'all cheered when George Floyd got unalived? Y'all remember that? Y'all made all sorts of foolish things. 9 minutes, this man had a knee on his neck. You see? We watched that. You say that man's name now, it's like it's a dirty word in certain circles. But see, the difference is he was a black man. So what that tells me is that as long as the police are enforcing the racial hierarchy, then the real Americans, they're willing to look the other way. And see, that tells you this. For many Americans, freedom is just a word. It sounds good on a flag or in a song, but when it costs them something, when it requires courage, then they fold. They would rather feel safe under force than free under risk. They were comfortable when the violence was pointed at black bodies. And now they're trying to pretend this is new because it's touched someone that looks like them. And so when people say land of the free, home of the brave, you got to ask yourself, free for who? Brave for what? Because see, there's nothing brave about cheering while the government kills its own citizens, especially when you only start caring once it stops being black people. And see, and there's nothing free about saying your rights only matter if you stay quiet or obedient or out the way. That's not cool either. That's just more cowardice. You understand? And these comment sections made something very clear. A lot of Americans believe your rights end the moment you challenge authority. If the police say you're a problem, then you deserve whatever happens to you. And that is not freedom. That's straight up submission. And people are openly saying they would rather live under a strong police state than risk the cops losing control because they enforce the racial hierarchy. We understand that. They're saying they don't mind losing their rights as long as the people are hurting the dark people. And that means rights are not principles to them. They are privileges handed out by the state and taken back when it's convenient. And see, that's not what free society looks like. Okay, that's what you need to understand. So let's stop lying to ourselves. Let me say it differently. You white folk need to stop lying because black people been knowing this. Our founding fathers understood this. And if they could see us right now, they would be disgusted. Look, black folk, as flawed as the founding fathers were, they had the sense enough to come up with a document and said all the idiots that follow behind us have to adhere to this. So thank God for that. And it's because of those documents that we're not subject to the whim of the current group of people in charge. Thank God for the Constitution, because these people have lost their mind. They have no principles. They say and do whatever they want to do. Can you imagine what the Supreme Court would be doing if they were just making the law up as they go along? Supreme Court is like a middle school girl. They just go along with whatever's popular coming from the president. Whatever your leanings are, you clearly know that some wild stuff going on in the judiciary right now. But here's the thing. The same men who fought a war because Britain or their soldiers were enforced laws with guns, they warned us over and over again that state power is dangerous. You understand? They let us know standing armies and unchecked enforcement would destroy liberty. They literally wrote it in the Constitution because they were afraid of exactly this kind of thinking that we see happening now. Benjamin Franklin, he warned us. You see, he basically said, give up liberty for security and you deserve neither. I think his quote was, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither. You see? Deserve neither liberty nor safety. And this is one of the most famous warnings from old Ben about trading freedom for security. And it directly applies to the idea of giving up your individual rights in exchange for police power or state power. What Franklin was saying is simple. If you give up freedoms to feel safe for a little while, you end up with neither one. You don't get freedom or safety. James Madison, he warned about the danger of concentrated power. Wherever the real power wherever the real power in government lies, there is danger of oppression. You understand? And these two men were both, they understood. They understood that the government needed to be kept in check. The founders wanted to limit state power, not expand it. You understand? They didn't trust the government. They didn't trust the police. They didn't trust authority. If they saw Americans today cheering for the police and throwing away their rights, they would say they wasted their time and energy and resources during the revolution. That's what they would say. That's what they would say based on what we know. So when Americans today say they support police power, even if it means sacrificing their individual rights, that directly contradicts what many of the founders argue. They believe that that a government strong enough to protect you is also strong enough to take everything from you. And that's why they built limits into the system and warned against giving up liberty for the promise of security. Look, Back to Blue has beaten the Constitution in the minds of many Americans. You all think the opposite of the founders. You think it's unpatriotic not to support government or police authority, even if you can see for you with your own eyes that they overstepping their bounds. You understand? People are okay with that because they believe in the violence will never turn on them. And obviously that's a lie. It's an illusion, isn't it? You've seen it happen today, but history also talks about that. Now, I got another video I want to share with you all, and I hope I don't get demonetized for this. Some of you all know this gentleman. I'm sure you do, okay? You got a lot of people chiming in, and one of the loudest voices is Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes has decided to speak on behalf of the far right, or the way out right. I don't know how he would be categorized. And whatever you think about this young man, he's clearly speaking for a strong contingent of people that have some strong feelings. Okay, and I find his position quite interesting, and we'll break that down a little bit.
Serious.
But you know, the thing is, he's decided he's chosen the government control over the Second Amendment. And this is especially interesting. I want you to understand something, okay? Now, Nick Fuentes, as the name denotes, clearly is not what we would call the typical American. It's not Smith, it's not Johnson, it's not Brown, it's not Stanworth. Nick Fuentes, in fact, is Italian and Mexican, and neither one of those groups have been treated well in this country. The Italians, and I've shared this information before, when they got to New Orleans, the Italians represent the group of people who hold the record for the largest group of people lynched in Louisiana at one time. They had signs up. You know, we always talk about the signs they had up for black people saying no, you know, no colored people. They also had no Mexicans. So these people have experienced a tremendous amount of racism, both open and violent, Italians and Mexicans. So Nick Fuentes, being an Italian Mexican, what that means to me is that the standards of white supremacy itself is not quite white. You understand? It's not quite white enough. He's not the right kind of white. And I find it astonishing that the white supremacist racists and the so-called real white people, the so-called heritage Americans, have outsourced this important job of being the mouthpiece of white supremacy to this brown dude. You all need to do better. You understand me? It tells me that you all have a shortage, a labor shortage. All right. And honestly, I'm thinking Nick Fuentes, if he can get this, maybe, if he can get this, all you black folk, we can apply for homeowner, a homeowner loan officer. We can get some head of HR, director jobs going on. I mean, if they hiring him to be the spokesperson for white supremacy, he's a Mexican Italian. We can become the director of hiring at some of these Fortune 500 companies. I mean, damn, it's wide open. I mean, after all, those are the biggest racial gatekeepers of black success in the USA. Hell, that's where the black dreams go to die. You know, not with fire hoses and dogs. We can handle that, but when your credit profile doesn't qualify, that's where to kill it. You understand? What do they say? We went with a more suitable candidate, or they start the conversation off with "unfortunately" at this time. See, that's the real deal. You see? But again, if white supremacy is short-staffed, that you got to hire Nick Fuentes, right? Then that's where the openings have always been. You understand me? We here to help. All you black folks, y'all send out your applications. But it also points to me that the racial purity test is no longer as important as it used to be about usefulness. It's about who's willing to stay quiet and on the parts that need to be spoken out loud. You see, in other words, power matters more than purity now. The ideology will tolerate almost anything as long as what is left of this dying racial hierarchy is protected. Of course, in my mind, I'm thinking this is the best you got. That's all you got. This is your king. This is your king of white grievance rhetoric. You understand this guy here? I mean, let's just pause for a minute. I want y'all to think about something. For generations, black people before us had to resist real racists. You understand? Real racist white men, the real deal. I mean, hardcore, stomp down, bad to the bone, card carrying, Klan, redneck, revenge, put the R in racist white men. These, the what? Bull Connor? Bull Connor? They had Andrew Jackson, Robert E. Lee. Damn. They had Nathan Bedford Forrest. They had a man with 3 last names. You know he's a redneck rider. You understand me? I mean, these dudes were the real deal. They were undefeated. They were unscored upon. They are the back-to-back champions of white supremacy. The Mount Rushmore of racists. They're the greatest of all time. They're the Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Magic Johnson, Shaquille O'Neal of racism, never to be challenged. They're the people that racists look up to. They're the racist racists. They want some damn half-pint internet personality. You understand who Bull Connor was? The man put fire hoses on kids, put dogs on old ladies. It was like a hobby. Andrew Jackson said, "You Native Americans, y'all got to go." And they went. Hell, Robert E. Lee was the hero of slavery. You understand? And then Nathan Bedford Forrest, a grand wizard of grand wizards. And then we get Nick Fuentes. Compare this guy, these keyboard gangsters, compare them to what our ancestors had to do. Nick Fuentes, when you compare him to them, that he's like a newborn baby with a pacifier in his mouth, wearing a Black Panther t-shirt with his fist in the air. You understand? That's what he is. But nevertheless, this is what we have to work with. So let's listen to what this young chap has to say. Y'all hit the #1 button if you can hear it clearly. Somebody, fair use. Go ahead, Nick. Let's listen to Nick.
He is not a hero. He is not a martyr. He is not a patriot. As a matter of fact, he shouldn't even be considered a citizen. Fuck this guy. And I don't care that he died. 100%.
Now he's talking about Alex Peretti. Okay, you would think he's talking about some black dude. You think he is talking about I don't know, George Floyd or somebody, but damn, let's keep listening.
Justified. Good riddance. Bye. One less piece of shit in the world.
Damn, that's how he's talking about a white man, sir. Sir, you can't talk about a white man like that. Nick, what is wrong with you, Nick? Cut it out. Let's keep listening. Somebody type family friendly in the chat room. Somebody type family friendly in the chat room, because we have to make sure that YouTube understands that this is a family friendly broadcast. And I don't want to be demonetized because Hot Boy Nick is being a prick. You understand me? We don't want that. We don't want Nick to demonetize my channel. Somebody type family friendly. This is family friendly in the chat room all day, every day. We got to make sure we keep that popping. All right, let's continue.
Good riddance. This is not a nurse, a veteran, whatever. This is a psycho. Who
did he become a psycho, Nick?
Does this? Think about how psycho you have to be. This guy is out there, and
what did he do, Nick? He had a gun. He's holstered. So that means everybody in Texas is a psycho. He's a psycho just because he got that iron with him, Nick. What's wrong with you, Nick? Do better.
Can barely contain himself. There is no restraint. This is not normal.
This is not normal. Really, Nick? This is a white man being with his firearm. He's went through the process. He filled out the applications. How dare you say he's not normal, Nick? Cut it out, Nick. Okay, let's keep listening.
Normal person does this. You want to go to a protest? Knock yourself out. You want to get bundled up in your parka. You want to go and bring your...
I mean, they had protests. There's lots of places that people go to with their firearms. I've seen this stuff on the internet. We see it happening all the time. It's nothing. This is America, Nick. What are you talking about? Let's keep listening. Y'all make sure y'all subscribe to the channel if you hadn't already. Let's keep going.
Coffee and hold up a sign. You want to go with a friend and make your voice heard. God bless you, honestly. That is your First Amendment right. To speech, to assembly. We do live in a free society. Hey, God bless you.
But
you want to go in daylight on a weekend or a normal day. You want to stand in a public place with your coat on.
I do.
And make your case. That is your prerogative. This is completely different.
What did he do, Nick? He didn't do nothing, Nick. Let's keep going.
You have people going about their lives and in private, in conversations with co-workers and family and friends, they might not agree with what is happening. Some of them might feel very strongly, and
Nick has a new mustache here. This mustache is like the Invincibles. Is that what it's got? Have y'all heard about that little online cartoon, The Invincible? We got that Invincible mustache going on. You guys know what the Invincibles are?
Commit themselves to activism. Maybe they bring a box of Dunkin' Donuts to the protest. Maybe they make a sign.
Maybe they don't eat donuts, Nick. Have you ever considered that? Maybe they have a sugar allergy or something like that. You know, let's not be so pushy.
And they go to the demonstration. Again, I don't agree with it. God bless you. This is somebody who is clearly on a mission. He is out there to confront law enforcement
with his camera, sir, respectfully.
Operatives. You know, that's different. It is one thing to go in public and apply pressure to policymakers.
Yeah, that's right. He has a Viltrumite mustache. Nick has that Viltrumite mustache.
And voters, in a democracy, we have a representative form of government, and we have elections. So if you want to go out in a public place that is owned by the people, and you want to get your message out to prospective voters or to the representatives of the voters, again, that is how we do things in the country.
Yeah, you know,
but this guy is chasing law enforcement agents. Law enforcement is not elected.
The police, he was chasing the police. So anyway, but let's keep going.
They're not representatives.
But they are state actors, Nick. They don't have to be represented. Not everybody who works for the state or represents the state is elected. Some people are appointed, some people are hired. Okay, like the people at the driver's license facilities. Okay, Nick.
These are people that have a job.
Clearly.
These are people that have a job. They're public servants. They're working for the elected officials. And they are involved every day in life or death situations. Why do you think they carry guns? Because they are getting, in some cases, into violent altercations, physical altercations that could lead to death or serious bodily harm.
They shouldn't use them on citizens who are not presenting any imminent threat to them. And if they're afraid, if they're that afraid of people with guns, then they probably don't need to be a police officer, because there are more guns in the United States than there are people, Nick.
So you have a guy who he's not going to a protest. He's not a demonstrator. He is a terrorist.
Oh my God, that's harsh. You used the T word. Somebody type T word in the chat room. Look, fam, I have taken the opportunity to really think about what Nick says, because again, like I said, whether you agree with this young man or not, he represents a large swath of people who feel that way. Okay. So, you know, now with that context in mind, we're going to just kind of assess what he said line by line, and you can go back and look at what he says, but I kind of highlighted some major points. You know, because what he says he's doing and what he's doing and what he's actually doing are different. Because see, this isn't just anger or opinion, it's strategy. It's about stripping Alex of any sympathy He goes about the process of trying to strip his citizenship away, making the state violence feel reasonable or necessary. Okay, so we need to slow down and kind of break this thing apart. All right. Nick Fuentes is not just reacting emotionally. Shout out to Dre Harden. I mean, he's not just reacting emotionally to a police killing. He's performing a very specific political function. He's repairing a broken hierarchy. And to do that, he has to take a white, educated, lawful, gun-owning American and strip him of the very status that normally protects people like him. And this matters because in the American imagination, whiteness, specifically white maleness, is default Americanness. I mean, hell, a white man is presumed innocent. His motives are interpreted generously. His mistakes are individualized, not moralized. And when a white man is killed on video by cops, federal cops, then the system is not supposed to look like that. It creates a psychological crisis. So, one of the first things Nick Fuentes said, when you really look at that, he says, I've seen enough. Okay. Not a hero, not a martyr, not a patriot. Shouldn't even be considered a citizen. This is what he said. Think about this. See, that's not commentary. That's banishment language. See, before Fuentes even argues the facts, the law, or the context, he excommunicates Alex Peretti, the victim, from any moral or national community. And once someone is framed as not even a citizen, then guess what? In your mind, the constitutional protections become emotionally optional. Due process becomes a nuisance, and it stops mattering. And see, this is the gateway back to the blue absolutism. And once the victim is declared outside the community, and guess what? State violence against him it no longer requires justification. See, Black Americans recognize this immediately, don't we? You see this happen to our people all the time when they get shot. This is the same script we've seen applied to our people for decades. But see, now it's being applied to a white man, right? So Black folk, this is not something we haven't seen before. We are shocked that they are giving this white man the Black treatment. Somebody typed the Black treatment in the chat room. Look, what else did Nick say? I don't care that he died. It's 100% justified, good riddance. Number one, that's prejudgment disguised as certainty. Okay, and Nick is announcing the verdict before the evidence is resolved. And that's not analysis, that's just closure. Let's move past this. You see, and at this time, these statements, you got video evidence that's out there being contested, right? The DHS, everybody's saying he wasn't brandishing a weapon. We all saw that. But hell, Fuentes is trying to end the conversation before it can destabilize the police authority. And the message to his audience is simple: don't rewatch the video, don't ask questions, don't reconsider. The system the system has spoken. You see, and what else did he say? I mean, think about the stuff he's asking us to believe. He said this is not a nurse. Clearly, he was a nurse, but he said this is not a nurse. This is a psycho. He said, not a normal person, or no normal person does this. And see, that is identity erasure and pathologizing. Nurse matters, educated matters, employed, those things matters. It's credentialed. Those are people, you hear those things about a person, you have sympathy for them in American culture, especially when it's a white man. Okay. And Fuentes has to delete those things and replace them with psycho. You understand? This is psychological warfare. When the video evidence is strong and it shows that the cops were wrong, you got to sever that empathy. Now, here's something I found mighty peculiar. calling the man not normal. What does that mean? Somebody type not normal in the chat room. It's really a way of saying don't see yourself in him. Because the moment a white conservative thinks that could be me, the whole entire back to blue, no matter who ideology, it starts to develop a wobble. Black people know this move. It's the same pivot used after police killing shift from what the police did to what was wrong with the victim, Trayvon Martin, Philando Castile. Come on, name the rest of them, family. Just put them in the chat room. You see? And here's another one I found. A protest is fine, coffee, sign, God bless you. All that sounds tolerant, but it's not. Fuentes is narrowing the definition of what legitimate protest is, right? Protest is allowed only if it never touches power, never interrupts the cops, never makes the police uncomfortable, coffee, signs, daylight, weekends. Anything beyond that, filming the police, observing the cops, helping someone push to the ground, oh, that's abnormal. And see, there's also a deeper, more political / partisan trick. In right-wing culture, protest is often coded as liberal. And so by leaning into these imaginary signs of coffee, that Starbucks, Seattle, California, what Nick is trying to he's trying to move his audience toward this conclusion. This isn't one of us. And that's crucial because the victim was also a licensed concealed carry. Think about that. That's a signal that's what normally aligns you with a conservative identity. And Fuentes needs to override that with a stronger tribal marker. You see what I'm saying? And the other thing I found interesting that he said he's on a mission to confront law enforcement. He's a terrorist. See, that's a last resort override. Terrorist is not, it's like calling a black person a thug or a criminal. Terrorist is not a description here, it's a permission slip. Once that label is set upon you, then the audience doesn't ask the question, was he disarmed? Was the lethal force necessary? Why not just arrest him? Why did they shoot him so many times? What do they call George Floyd? Oh, he was a drug addict. Oh, okay. Dangerous. See, that whole thing of terrorists, it ends proportionality. It converts a lawful concealed carry armed white man killed by federal overreach into a threat that needed to be neutralized. It's the same machinery historically used against black people. They called us gangbangers. They call us thugs. They made us out of somebody type super predator in the chat room. And now it's adapted to preserve police supremacy and violence against a white man. And the only reason we getting so much backlash is because this is relatively new. Now, there was a time white folks getting killed all the time back in the old West days, and you always had Italian mobsters and gangsters getting killed by the police, but this is new. You see? And see, here's the part that makes white society uncomfortable. When Philando Castile, a black man, a lawful black gun owner, was killed, many people defaulted immediately to the officer's fear. Gun plus blackness was enough. The system didn't have to work that hard. But see, with Alex Peretti, that reflex doesn't activate. Gun plus whiteness should trigger rights, innocence, benefit of the doubt. So Fuentes has to manufacture fear. He has to import that old racial architecture and paste it onto a white body using words like psycho, abnormal, mission, terrorist. And this blueprint is coming home. It reveals the truth that black people have known all the time. Americanness is conditional. Whiteness protects you only as long as you align with enforcement and hierarchy. And the moment you stand in opposition to the police, even a white man can be stripped of his citizenship with rhetoric. And see, in the arguments that I'm making, Nick Fuentes, it helps accidentally because it demonstrates in real time the true priority at stake. What they're trying to do, preserve police, federal enforcement legitimacy, maintain that racial hierarchy. Don't worry about these rights. You know? And he's willing to discard any sympathy for a white male lawful gun owner. Think about that. All to protect the sanctity of law enforcement. I mean, this man and all these people, they're trying to stop what they perceive as a dangerous thought from spreading among his audience and anybody else. If the state can do that, and this is the danger, because see, folk are saying, well, hell, you know, I get it when it happens to a black person. I hear it when the blacks get undone by unalived by the cops. But when it happens to a white man, it's not sticking. You see? So he solves that in ideology, basically by saying the victim is not us. And that's how you strip a white man of his Americanness. But here's the thing that I find interesting, very interesting. And we're not going to be here too long tonight. I have some things to do. And so I'm not going to hold y'all all night, but I want to kind of land this plane and bring this home. Okay. And again, I promise you guys I won't be here too long, but I want to kind of get this out the way. And I wanted to do this broadcast before next week. So many other things I want to talk about. Things are just happening back to back. It's so much stuff going on, man. Every time I look up, something new, man. It's crazy. But are you guys learning something? Are you learning something? If you're learning something, let me know. If you're learning something, then I should earn something. But at this particular juncture, I need you all to make sure you hit the number 1 button. No, hell with the number 1 button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and help me get to 200,000. Now, again, let's be clear about what this moment has exposed, because it stripped the mask off the system in real time. Okay, when everything was on the table, when a white, educated, lawful gun owner, an American, was shot on video, the system told us exactly what it values in order. And here's the hierarchy. Number 1, control. Not justice, not truth, control. The system's first and highest need is to preserve its authority, especially the authority of enforcement. And the moment control is threatened, everything else becomes negotiable, even white lives. Somebody type white lives matter in the chat room. Somebody type white lives matter in the chat room. Go ahead. Not to the government when you get in the way of control. Now, number 2, institutional legitimacy. Police power, okay? The badge, the uniform, the idea that the state must never appear wrong or weak or constrained. Because see, if legitimacy cracks, then obedience follows. So legitimacy must be defended at all costs, even by rewriting reality. Y'all know that man was a white, lawful gun owner. Why are you calling him a terrorist? He's a nurse. Why? Crazy. Think about that. They want you not to believe your lying eyes. They will literally rewrite history in front of your face, rewrite reality, and make you think you didn't see what you saw. The man was on his knees. All he was doing, he had the camera in one hand like this, and they popped him. Think about that. Number 3, control and hierarchy. Who's allowed to confront power and who's not? Who can carry a gun safely and who becomes a threat the moment they do? And see, this is where race historically did the heavy lifting, but what you're seeing now is hierarchy defending itself without race as a cover. You see? Used to be just black folk getting shot, okay? Now you got white men getting shot. Now the fourth thing is your rights. This is the hierarchy. The First Amendment, the Second Amendment, due process. Apparently, these are not foundations. These are permissions. They are honored when it's convenient and reinterpreted when it's inconvenient. And the moment rights interfere with control, they lose. And what's dead last? The individual. Even when the individual is white, even when the individual is an educated white male, who's a licensed concealed carry. You understand? If the system is forced to choose between one person and its authority, the person's going to lose every time. What that tells you is simple. The system is system first, not people first. And it always has been. Whiteness has, look, let me explain something to you white folk. I want y'all to come in here because I've been telling you this for years. They don't care about you. Whiteness has never been a guarantee of protection. It has been a conditional membership card, valid only so as long as you don't interfere with enforcement and control. And the moment a white man steps out of alignment, films too closely, questions authority, intervenes on behalf of someone else, or stands in the wrong place, you get treated, you get that black treatment. Your Americanness gets revoked. And that's why you saw a white man get stripped of his identity in real time. He's not a citizen, he's not normal, he's not a nurse, he's not a demonstrator, he's a terrorist. That's not analysis, that's excommunication. So the question you all need to be asking yourself is who actually benefits from this system? It's not ordinary white folk. It's not gun owners. It's not working professionals. It's not, look, not even the ones who believe they're on the right side. The real beneficiaries is the political class, the security apparatus, the enforcement bureaucracy, corporations, the ones that rely on stability enforced by force. They benefit from predictability, from obedience, from a population trained to rationalize its own discipline. And who maintains the system? Hell, I mean, yeah, the police are the most invisible enforcer, but they're not the only ones. The system is also maintained by the commenters. You folk who justify that violence after the fact. I'm talking to all y'all listening to this broadcast. You influencers who strip this victim of his humanity. I'm talking about you all who've been saying that Alex Peretti deserved it. You all are the citizens who've abandoned principle for comfort, especially the people who say it couldn't happen to me. See, that sentence is the system's favorite lie. And who is the ultimate winner? The system itself. See, a system that can kill a lawful gun owner, especially a white man on camera, and still keep the public loyal is a system that has won. It has proven it can override race, rights, and even reality to preserve its own control. Look, white folk, I want you white folk to listen to me. I know you don't have, I'm your black friend for tonight. I want you white people to listen to me. Listen. See? This is the part white people don't like to hear. But it's the truth, and it's overdue. Y'all listening? Somebody type W in the chat room. White people, I want you to listen. If you're poor, if you're working class, you're barely hanging on, then you need to understand that you're expendable. They don't like you either. Don't comfort yourself by thinking that the wealth saves you either, because unless you are rich enough to fight back, rich enough to insulate yourself completely, rich enough to control your environment, then you are still vulnerable. Even billionaires aren't untouchable unless they remain useful. Hell, we all understand the only reason someone like Epstein got all those endless slaps on his wrist for years, it wasn't morality, it was leverage. He had that file. You understand what I'm saying? He had that book. The moment he became more trouble than he was worth, he accidentally, apparently unalived himself on purpose by mistake while being housed in the federal correctional facility in Brooklyn somewhere. That's how that works. But here's the bigger lesson, white people, and this has never really been about race. Race is the cover story. And I know it's a lot of people that talk about race, and they do that for you. They make you feel that race is important. See, the real game is control. Somebody type control. Control is the goal. Bars. Race, the distraction that keeps you from seeing the machinery. You were told that you had more rights than those black people. And that made you feel good, didn't it? If we can convince the lowest of white men that he's better than the best of black people, we'll have control of them forever. I know he didn't say it exactly like that, but that's what he meant. But see, here's the thing. What you really had was privileges. You had temporary permissions that worked as long as you stayed convenient. And now you're watching those privileges disappear real time. Your job's been outsourced. Your wages have been crushed. Your dignity has been stripped. You confused because you were told that this country was built for you. This is a white man's country. But your right to work, your right to stability, your right to be treated as a full American was never guaranteed. It was all conditional. It was the trick that kept the system running. And at least, you know, hey, you know, you're better than the black people. You're better than those Indians, the savages, and Negroes. As long as you believe that, you didn't notice who was actually taken from you, did you? You didn't notice who was consolidating power. You didn't notice that you were being controlled. You understand? In fact, you didn't notice that control was the priority. And now, push comes to shove, you're seeing the truth, aren't you? Even if you're white, even if you're male, even if you're a natural born American citizen, control matters more than you. You're not protected, you're managed. And see, here's the thing about it. We can trace this all the way back to before the country existed. Bacon's Rebellion happened in 1676. Poor whites, indentured servants, enslaved Africans rose up together against the Virginia's colonial elite, the governor, English governor, terrified the ruling class because it proved that the real threat wasn't race, it was unity. Somebody type unity in the chat room. Somebody type, I'm rubbing it in to white people. Yeah, I know white, they need their talking too. We need to talk to these white people and get their mind right. They losing it. They don't know how to deal with this black treatment. God damn it. What the hell happened? How in the hell did they shoot a white man? They're losing it. This is messing them up. Unity. That's the threat to control, unity. And the response that the elite put upon those poor blacks, whites, browns, indentures, all of the response, it was deliberate. What did they do? They split the rebels up by color. They say, look, white folk, hey, we know, come on over here with us. You'll be like us. I'm a rich white man. You know, they wrote some laws. They rewrote the laws and they hardened the racial categories. I know you're kind of like, but you're not quite white. So you go over there with the colors. You see? And you're white. You're white. So we're going to give you some more privilege. You can drink at this water faucet. We'll give you some of this and some of that. But you're like us. And basically what they did was they extended these little privileges to the poor whites. Somebody type poor whites in the chat room. Just enough, not much, just enough to buy loyalty. And the black people will push further down to keep the two groups from aligning again. As long as they feel, well, I'm better off than the blacks. So, I'll hang out over here. And so what happened? Race became a wedge, not because it was natural, because it was useful. And that strategy worked, and it's been working for centuries. Hell, we still live inside of it. But see, here's the problem. Here's what's going on. Now the demographics are changing. And some of you think you can bargain with these elites. I'm talking to you white folk. You think you can bargain with these elites. If we just get more white people back in charge, if we could just have more white babies, somebody type white babies. Okay, if we can do that, then we can get the old deal back again. Let's bring it back to the 50s. Look, man, that deal is gone. The elites have moved on. They don't need you the way they once did. They will work with whomever serves control best. Light brown, dark brown, black, immigrant, citizen, it doesn't matter. If Martians came down from Mars, they were and were able to help them maintain control and their wealth over your white behind, they will work with the Martians. They will work with whoever serves control best. Loyalty to power matters no more than color now. That's the hard truth. You've been hoodwinked. You've bamboozled. You've been led astray. The system you all defended, that system of white supremacy, racism that you love with all your heart, it never loved you back. It used your white behind. And now that you're useless, it's perfectly willing to move on because control, not race, not rights, not people, has always been the point. You see, so now you got a lot of delusional white folk who think they can do something about this. Think again. What you're seeing isn't a one-off. What happened to Alex Peretti in Minneapolis shows you exactly what happens to your white privilege when it interferes with system-wide control. The very same police apparatus that you counted on to maintain this white supremacist racial hierarchy will turn on you just as quickly when you become inconvenient. That's the deal you made. And now that deal has expired. See, the police shooting was unlikely in the sense that the system normally doesn't shoot and kill educated, law-abiding white men, especially on camera. And many assume these cops, these federal agents, who are meant to serve and protect, who have been used for decades to enforce this racial social hierarchy, would treat someone like him differently, right? What this showed to me, and what it should show you, is that control is more important even than a white man who fits the profile of the most privileged class. And I know you all don't believe you're privileged, but you are. You understand? He can be treated the same harsh treatment as the blacks have historically been treated under. Same enforcement operations. Basically, a hatch was open, okay, and it revealed the system and the real interior workings. So white folk, people, they losing their minds because this challenges, what it does is it breaks these old assumptions. And some people some people are permanently safe and some people aren't. Simply because of the color of their skin, their education, or their lawful behavior. And these reactions that you see, they're frantic because people are trying to protect their worldview. Not because they're honestly engaging what the videos show. They want the story to fit that old narrative. Race plus law enforcement equals predictable results. But now that pattern has been broken on camera. A white man dies. You see? And people are reacting as if it's normal or justified, and it's forcing other people to grapple with something that they weren't prepared for. The system does not guarantee safety for anyone who becomes inconvenient to the enforcement of power and control. And see, that's why so many comments are contradictory. People are desperate. I'm not talking to you black people. I'm not talking to y'all. I'm talking to white people. This don't happen to them. This is not a white people problem. Again, getting shot by the police is not a white people problem, and it never has been. You see? They're trying to say he wasn't American, so his rights don't apply. He attacked a federal agent, so it was justified. He wasn't truly white. Some people are probably calling him off-white. He was Middle East or something somewhere. See? Because they want to feel like there's no change in that system that they've relied upon. Oh, he was a terrorist. He was a lunatic. The man was a highly educated, stable man. That doesn't make sense, but they're saying it. They need to label him something so they can sleep at night. And see, they do this because admitting what really happened, that the system treated him harshly, even though he fit the many privilege categories, would mean admitting what you're trying to highlight. You see? What we're trying to do here. And that is that the system prioritizes controls over right. And it's going to turn on anyone who's disobedient. In other words, what happened to Alex is like a spotlight shining inside a machine. And once people see it, you try to explain it away with these lies and exaggerations, rather than believe, you want to believe these false narratives rather than accept the truth. And that's where all this confusion is coming from. And see, here's the thing. Why is the system collapsing? And I know I'm long-winded, but I'm a lawyer. That's what I do. Look, it's racial hierarchy, this white supremacy, racism has outlived this system. Look, the system was flawed from its inception. It was always an illusion. It's another system. It's no different than monarchy, theocracy, or any other system designed to control human beings. Religion, it was never a permanent guarantee for ordinary people. And you all are ordinary. All you poor people, you're ordinary. It was fragile. It's a fragile social contract built on control and the illusion of rights. And right now, that illusion is cracking. It's collapsing because of demographic and economic realities of the 21st century. Just ain't enough white people around for y'all to be helpful. And the elites are willing to work with anyone who can help them maintain control. That means people in other places. And see, what matters more to them is not your color, but obedience and predictability. Not your race, not your nationality. You were told this country was built for you, but what you had was not rights. You see? You had privileges granted to you by them. Those privileges kept you complacent. They distracted you with the belief that you were better than the darker people. All the system had to do was convince you that you were better, and you stayed quiet, even though if you really looked around, you had a lot less than many of them did. And in fact, when you realized they had more than you and you thought you were supposed to be promised more, you went and burned their things down. That's what happened to Tulsa, Oklahoma, Rosewood, Elaine, Arkansas, Wilmington, Delaware. That's why you do what you do. But the truth is, everybody is struggling. Everybody's behind on bills. Nobody's life is as we thought we were promised. But see, now the distraction is gone. You're learning how hard things are. Matter of fact, you're learning that you weren't protected and that you've been managed. The system you defended does not love you. It does not prefer you simply because of the color of your skin. It simply used you white folk to enforce control. You were the farm team. You were the B League. Every time they needed new bodies, they called you up. Come join the police force. Come join the military. And many of you believe that you know at some point you would be able to become a billionaire, join the elite class, marry a princess from Monaco, right? That's a pipe dream they sold you. All they gave you white folks was methamphetamines and PTSD from protracted wars. You thought if you repeated enough of this racist rhetoric and you followed enough of these rules and you abided by the social contract and you stayed loyal long enough, they let you sit at the table. And they never were. They gave you a rule book that said, that would lead you to the American dream. Just go to job and go and get the education, and we'll issue you a wife, and you'll have 3 kids and 2 cats and a dog and a Mitsubishi station wagon. You'll live happily ever after. Hell, even if you did follow every rule, all it did was turn you into a hyped up, degreed worker, just another cog in the machine helping maintain the system. Hell, Hollywood, media, the culture told you that you were special. Told white men they were special. All the superheroes special. Hell, it's so bad now. They did a study and said that white folk have a fit when black people appear in the fantasy stories. You know, like futuristic stuff. White, oh my God, it messes their mind up. You see? See, Hollywood told them they were better. And that lie kept you complacent. And in the end, it was an illusion. And once you were no longer necessary for maintaining control, the system moved on. And that's what you see happening now. And see, that's why folk are scrambling now, trying to explain what happened. And this is why it's important to have this conversation. Now, you know, they want to believe that this man was wrong. They want to believe he wasn't American enough. He wasn't white. He wasn't normal. They want to say he was a lunatic. He was a terrorist. He was about to unalive police officers, you know. We all know that's not true. Same thing that happens with black people. We know that's not true. Yet many of you accept that lie because it's easier than admitting what this moment really means. And I want all you people to come close, all you white folk to come as close as possible. And I'm going to tell you in simple terms what this means. It means, regarding this white supremacy, racism, and all this stuff, it means you've been played. That's what it means. You're suckers. Well, like I said, I'm not going to be here all night. I want to take the opportunity to thank the 6 people who learned something tonight and contributed to the super chat. I want to thank the 6 people for taking the time and contributing to the super chat. I certainly appreciate you all. You know, learning, you 6 people. I guess you're the only people who learned something, because of course, the only people I asked to contribute to the super chat are people who learned something. I'm sure the rest of you didn't learn anything. Y'all knew this already, I'm sure. So thank the 6 people who contributed to the super chat. I'd hope that at some point we could get to 10 super chats, but obviously, you know, I got to do a better job. Okay, so I'll do the best I can to do better. But clearly, since you all aren't going to contribute to the super chat, let me remind you that I'm an attorney and I practice law, and I would appreciate it if you would contribute to my real job, because clearly I can't do this as a profession. Hit me up at 713-229-0770 if you've been involved in a motor vehicle accident. I'll be more than happy to help you. And if I can't, then I'll be more than happy to send you off to someone who can. Don't call me for, what is it called? No family law, no contracts, none of that. Just, you know, call me if you've been involved in a car accident. The other thing is we are marching steadily towards 100,000. I need you all to make sure, even if you didn't learn anything, make sure you please subscribe to the channel. We are only about 200 people away from getting the next 1,000. I think we'll be at 92,000 if you good folks will just subscribe to the channel. I certainly would appreciate that. I certainly would appreciate that. In addition, hit the like button, man. Let's get it crack-a-lating. You know what I mean? Let's do that. I would certainly appreciate that. And you know, gosh, you know, this is fun. You know, I like tackling these really tough. This is hard stuff. This is not easy. I've been dealing with this for about a week. I wanted to kind of put things in context, and I really appreciate everybody for your patience on this Friday evening. I have somewhere to be at 7. I'm clearly going to be late. Okay, I'm clearly going to be late. Somebody asked me if I have a Cash App. I'll put that on the bottom of the screen. But I wanted to make sure I got this out because this is important. You know, I always tell folk, hey, man, you know, let's just talk about the facts. You know, Americans, we don't have anywhere else to go. We might as well get along with each other. That's black, white. You know, I tell heritage Americans, foundational Black Americans, you know, that's kind of like the equivalent of heritage Americans. You know, nobody else wants us. They don't want us in Europe, and the Africans don't like us either. Not like that. They'll come take our money, you know, and I'm not talking across the board. I'm just saying, generally speaking, this is our country. We need to make it the best we can. And so, you know, let's try to make it livable. But I don't think it's Black Americans and white Americans who have the issue, especially foundational Black Americans and white Americans who've been here for a while. We have an understanding. You know, we generally respect each other's boundaries. And, you know, we fought together, we bled together. Oftentimes we eat together, we grow up together, we have the same culture. We worship in the same way. You know, we speak the same language. You have the same experiences. It makes no sense for us to continue with this political divide and this racial divide. Let's just have an understanding. Okay. Let's get back. Let's find peace in our country. We have enough enemies, all right, around the world. But anyway, family, I want to give a big shout out to the folks who contribute to the Cash App. My gosh, big shout out to Herbert Addison. Also, thank you, Robert Williamson. He said for the Barbara Jordan movie, thank you so much, brother. We're going to have that. We're going to hold that in February. Have a special showing before it goes on PBS. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for the Cash App. Also, wow, okay, great. I'm glad more people learn, okay, because I was thinking only 6 people learned anything, and it's like, my God, it's been a big waste of time. We got 18 super chats. I feel better about the lesson. I mean, like maybe I should dumb it down and talk about, you know, Taylor Swift or something, the latest rapper. Got 19 super chats. Let's see if we can get to 20 before we finish. WP aren't just mad that we ain't outside. Yeah, we are not outside. We are resting. Fire for effect. Thank you for the super sticker. Malfunctioning white. They are tripping. They are learning. They get a wake up call. They are getting a Black people wake up call. Shout out to Dre Harden, Kent State University. Good looking out. Dre Harden also, he's arguing just doing their job. Nuremberg, thank you. That's exactly right. Somalis protesting for old boy, huh? Yeah, they are. That's wow. Captain Obvious, thank you for the $5. Also, Mark the Freelancer, learned something. Good looking out for you, sir. Alonzo Dunn, 1677, learn in the end. Thank you so much, brother, for the $10. Byron Jordan, thank you for the $2 super sticker. The Black Toxic Masculinist, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Also, Boss Dog, thank you for the $9.99. And Win Samuel, thank you for the super sticker. Oh, big shout out to the Rough Pasher, 7549. Thank you for the $49.99 super chat. Also, a King Call Henry, thank you for the $2. And oh my goodness, Namaya, I'm not gonna say that. I'm gonna call you Phoenix. Thank you, Phoenix Rose. I appreciate you for the $5 super sticker. And also Nasi, here you go again. Nancy, I'm gonna call you Nanny. That's your name. Thank you, Nan. I appreciate you. And Unique Q938, thank you so much. Michael in 736, I appreciate you. I appreciate you too. And GCLA 6024. All right, so we got 20 super chats. Here's the thing, man. Let's go ahead and just bring this thing on home. Look, thank you all for the super chats. You guys are the real MVPs. I appreciate you showing me that you learned something. Please, folks, please hit the subscribe button. Now, let's go ahead and talk about this. Let's be clear about something. None of this had to happen, okay? What unfolded right now, the outrage, the confusion, the division, it could have been avoided if white America had seen clearly what Black America has been saying for generations. You understand? You know what I mean when I say that? Let me show you what I mean when I say that. We've been telling you, haven't we been telling you this for a long time? Have you said you didn't know? You saying you guys didn't know? Y'all didn't know? You sure you didn't know? You sure? Absolutely sure that you didn't know? Y'all sure you didn't know? Remember this guy? You guys remember that guy? I remember him. Y'all drummed him out of his profession. What you're watching play out right now in real time in the killing of Alex Peretti, a 37-year-old white U.S. citizen with a concealed carry, no criminal history, shot by the federal police in Minneapolis in broad daylight. It exposes deeper truth about power, race, justice in this country. Peretti was killed during this immigration raid, and the video shows that he had been disarmed. He had been pepper sprayed also. Was he really harmless? I mean, was he really going to cause anybody harm with all that pepper spray in his eyes? You see? But see, here's the thing. This moment didn't emerge out of nowhere. Because see, for centuries, black people in this country have lived under a system that treated us like we were less than fully American. Hasn't it? Even when we paid taxes. Even when we fought in all the same wars. Bled under the same flag. We were enslaved without rights. We were free without protection. We were segregated under the law, denied the vote, disarmed, policed as suspects, and dehumanized as less worthy of justice. We have been killed by law enforcement, and the nation often looked the other way. And see, if people had cared, if they really cared, then the precedent would not have been set for what you're now watching happen to someone who should fall within the most protected or privileged class. Every time somebody said, well, you know, he shouldn't have, or maybe he was asking for it, you're laying the groundwork for this particular moment. So your privilege was never a right. It was conditional. It was a permission slip. It was handed out by a system that rewarded obedience and punishment more than humanity and justice. If you exercise that privilege to uphold a system that treated other human beings as less than, well, don't make the mistake. You were the system. You were part of the social, economic, and political machinery that made these outcomes possible. Not all white people. Not blaming all white people. I'm not generalizing. Some of you all fought valiantly against it, but it was enough. Enough of y'all who defended the status quo. You cheered at the police. You voted for the over-enforcement and lack of accountability. You let the racial caste function as a means of distraction, a reason to look away from your own exploitation while turning your anger toward those who had less power. So let's not pretend you were innocent bystanders in all of this. When black people were shot while fleeing, while even complying, while unarmed with their hands up, people said, well, he shouldn't have. Or if he had just listened, if he hadn't broke the law, that was the training for how the whole system operates. And it trained the nation to put law enforcement first and human beings last. It normalized brutality. It normalized excuses. And now when someone who looks like the ideal American citizen meets that same fate on video, the illusion cracks and people don't know what to do with themselves. And see, the reaction hasn't always been righteous. Y'all know that. People rush in to protect the law enforcement first, even when what happened is questionable. Other people go out of their way to deny a person's Americanness or minimize even their humanity or try to turn folk into a villain. Y'all turned a 12-year-old child named Tamir Rice into a villain. He was playing with a pop gun in the park. Because, see, admitting the truth would mean admitting that the system doesn't protect anyone's rights unconditional, not even yours. Dr. King said it plainly. Injustice everywhere is a threat to justice anywhere. And see, that wasn't a slogan. It was a warning. It was a warning that anytime one group of people could be treated as less than fully human, all of the other groups, all of the rest of us stand to lose the rights and our dignity and our safety. And see, that's not just politics. And that's not just a debate about policy. This is a reckoning with the fact that the framework built to enforce order in America and control has been built at the expense of justice for millions of people, and that when the system no longer needs that illusion of racial privilege to keep you aligned, it drops it. Control has always mattered more than race or rights, and now you're seeing it in the open. And everything you're watching now, every protest, every denial, every frantic comment, it's a reflection of what the truth is. And none of this had to happen. None of it. But it did, because for too long, the warnings of Black people that we offered freely were ignored. We tried to tell you. We tried to make you understand. We made songs about it, videos, wrote books about it. And see, here's the thing. If our pain mattered, then this moment of reckoning wouldn't be so jarring now. But see, now it's not a warning anymore. Now the bill has come due. Now, here's the part. White people, come on to the front. Come on to the front, white people. Come on up in here. Come on up and sit with Uncle D for a minute. You need to hear this. I want you white people to breathe. Breathe, white people. Breathe. It's gonna be all right. Okay? Calm down. Go get your macchiato latte and sit down somewhere and get comfortable. The sky's not falling. What's happening is adjustment. Yes, you're gonna have to give up some of those things. You're gonna have to give some things back. You're not gonna need all that land. It's not enough of y'all anymore, okay? You're not gonna need to trademark the earth anymore. You're not going to need global political control. You don't need global finance. You don't need a global military. Okay? You're not going to be able to exert force all over the world and expect no consequences. The chapter is closing on that. But here's some good news. Somebody type hallelujah in the chat room. Here's some good news for you white folk. You're not being erased. Okay? You're being invited back to the human family. See, for thousands of years, human beings live without one group sitting permanently at the top on everyone else's shoulders. That's how nature works. See, that's how history works. And see, and it's not how the future is going to work. Okay. White people have done some amazing things. Let's give white people credit. You've been exceptionally skilled at managing resources. Y'all are great managers, organizing systems and coordinating large scale human activity, you know, like the slave trade. Y'all were great at that. You know, co-opting resources, plundering, you know, there's other words we can use, but managing, you know, we get it. And see, there's a place for everybody in this world going forward, but that place is not at the top by default because of the color of your skin. That illusion is gone, okay? And honestly, it was never sustainable anyway. You are less than 7% of the world population. You don't even have a birth rate that can sustain your own numbers, let alone dominate billions of people forever. That's not hatred, that's math. That's nature. Fighting it is exhausting, it is pointless, and it's unnecessary. So stop panicking. Stop raging. Stop clinging to a system that has already expired. You don't have to rule the world to exist in it. You don't have to dominate humanity to belong to it. And see, this moment, yes, even this tragedy of the death of Alex Peretti and and the young lady who died 2 weeks before, it can be something positive if you let it. It can be a moment when we finally move forward as a human family instead of clinging to these artificial hierarchies that will always doom to collapse. Okay, and there will always be division. There will always be prejudice. But this system, this white supremacy, this global system, this organizing principle, it's finished. It was a belief in the span of human history, and it's over now. So y'all need to let it go. Y'all need to let it go. Stop fighting. Don't fight what can't be fought. Nature always wins. This has been a Spurling. I appreciate everybody. Thank you so much for your time you spent here with me today. Make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. And as always said this time, I'm out.
In the Spurling Podcast. Hit the like button, subscribe.